بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. My name is Riad Ouarzazi and I'm here. It's my honor, in fact, to be here amongst you on this beautiful, entertaining program called Homemade Happiness. Our first episode was last week, and just so that we can recapitulate, the purpose of this series, Homemade Happiness, is to bring back that joy, or to reinforce that joy, that happiness, the peace, the serenity in our homes. هذا هو المبتغى وهذا هو المراد. الجنة في بيوتنا. كيف نسعد في بيوتنا؟ البيت مفروض يكون سكن لنا كما قال الله سبحانه وتعالى. So Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned that these homes are supposed to be a source of peace for us. Now, after 2 years, with this lockdown, today our kids, alhamdulillah, are back to school. So I want to know, really, are there any parents who are sad? Are there any parents who are sad that their kids are back to school? Because I really want to go and visit these parents and tabarak and use their blessings. Is there any household who are crying because their kids are back to school? Or are the parents extremely happy that khalas, once and for all, alhamdulillah, our kids are back to school? So the purpose again of this series is, how can we as a family, as a household, live happily? Father and a mother, husband and wife, brother and a sister, brother and his brother, sister and her sister, the father with his kids, with his son or daughter, so is the mother with her son and daughters. How can we enforce this relationship between one another? My brothers and sisters, I shared with you a couple of principles last week, and as I mentioned, I will not be able to solve all problems in every household have their own problems, but I can share with you some foundation and principles. If you were to utilize these foundations, inshallah ta'ala, you will see changes in your homes. Last week, I mentioned the principle of recognizing that your family is ni'mah, valuing your family. Your family comes in first before friends and before anybody else. Your family comes in first. That was that principle, if you remember. And we talked about how we could worship and pray together, worship Allah together, not necessarily praying the 5 daily prayers at home together with our families. That was the purpose of our masajid, but doing qiyam al-layl together, doing halaqat at home together, doing things together as a family. And as I mentioned as well, that I will be sharing, these lessons, and each time maybe, addressing a person, maybe addressing a wife, or maybe addressing a husband, or maybe addressing the kids, or fathers or mothers, and whatnot. So today, inshallah ta'ala, maybe my advice will be to the parents. And I want to use something different. I want not to, pinpoint problems or whatnot. I want to ask the parents, what language are you using to talk to your children with? How do you discipline your children? Let me tell you the 3 main methodologies used by most parents. Orders. Method number 1, orders. Do this. Awamir, nawahi, do this, do this. Refrain. This is the second method used by most parents. Don't do, do or don't do. And method number 3, warnings. If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, this will happen. These are the 3 main methods. Within these methods, there are so many others, like the method of blame. Whatever they do, you blame. You know, we keep on blaming our children. اللوم دائما تلومهم والعتاب. Or there's another method called the provocative advice. It's an advice, you know, but it's a provocative advice, such as, I warn you, if you were to befriend that man, that boy, that girl, you know, this will happen to you, something like that. Or sometimes you use threats, or sometimes there's certain parents that use yes, awamir wa nawahi, do's and don'ts, or sometimes comparison. And our kids, I know, you ask any kid, they will tell you, oh, I hate it when my parents compare me to my cousin, or they compare me to my neighbor. Look at your neighbor, look at your cousin, look at her, mashallah, she did this and that. Or look at your, mashallah, Ahmed, look how he dresses and how he behaves and how he does and how he talks. And our kids, they hate this. Or, and this I can tell you a lot about, the other method that a lot of parents are using, you know, giving lectures. Giving lectures. And then, you know, some say, oh, here we go again. Here's another lecture. And you have to listen. And when I was your age, when I came to Canada, I had only $1. Does that ring a bell? I had $1 with me. And I did this, and I did this, and I did that. And mashallah, I'm not, you know, belittling the efforts of our parents, but الجيل today, الجيل اليوم بتاعنا اليوم, you know, our kids today, can we use the methods used by our parents, you know, and how our parents treated us in the back, you know, we can't. Time evolve, so our kids, and so are our methods. I want to propose a method today, maybe in this 3 minutes I have left. And the method, you know, I'd like to propose for most parents here is a language called the language of affection, the language of love, the language of affection, or the language of love. إيش the language of love? Look at the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. This language of love is like the asa السحرية بتاع موسى. You know, Musa had the staff, the magical staff. You know, the language of love, the language of affection is just like that stick, like that staff, how it can change his things with your kids, or in fact, with your friends or your loved ones in general. Here's Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam talking to Mu'ad, a young man. Ya Mu'ad, wallahi inni la uhibbuk. Before he gave him the advice, he first says, by Allah, I love you, O Mu'ad. Yes, I love you, O Mu'ad. So now Mu'ad is all ears. Listen to what the Prophet had to say. But first, how the Prophet attracted him and got his attention. Ya Mu'ad, by Allah, I love you. طيب, أحبك الله يبتني فيه يا رسول الله. Yes, Ya Mu'ad. And then the Prophet said, do not miss out. Look at this golden advice. In the end of Salah, دبر كل صلاة, to say اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. So you want to give an advice to your son or your daughter. How can you get them to hear and to listen? The Prophet Muhammad first talks about, you know, love. So he uses this language of love. And then he tells Mu'ad, Ya Mu'ad, don't forget, don't miss out on this particular advice. After each salah, make this dua. Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Here's Prophet Muhammad with Abu Umama. Abu Umama was about 16 or 17 years old. And then Prophet Muhammad tells Abu Umama, Ya Umama, there are certain people, if I were to see them, يلين قلبي لهم وأنت منهم وأنت واحد منهم هناك من الناس. There are certain people, if I was to look at them, my heart gets drawn towards them, and you're one of them. Ya Mu'ad, do not forget every time you come in home. Ya Abu Umama, do not forget every time you come in home, sallim ala ahli, say assalamu alaikum. Abu Umama says, by Allah, I never forgot it. Look at that beautiful advice. But first, before he gave him the advice, he talked to his heart. To his heart. Ibn Abbas, the advice to Ibn Abbas, when he made that dua for him, Allahumma علمه التأويل وفقهه في الدين، أو اللهم فقهه في الدين وعلمه التأويل. He's making this beautiful dua for Ibn Abbas, or Allah, make him faqih in the deen and teach him the interpretation of the matters of the deen. Making dua for your son, making dua for your daughter, but first trying to talk to the heart. لغة الحب أو لغة العاطفة، سميها اللي بدك، بس try to use it with your kids, with your family, with your loved ones, with your spouse, with your husband, with your wife. Look at Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail. Ya bunay. Why didn't he say, I'm almost done? When he says Ya bunay, in Arabic you would say Ya ibni, oh my son. But he says Ya bunay, بصيغة التصغير, belittling it, and then the son goes to his father, Ya abati. In Arabic you say Abi, but he says Abati, Abati, pampering, oh my beloved father, such a son, Ya bunay, Ya abati. Versus some people calling their dads, yo dad, yo dad, old man. كده انت تنادي ابوك yo man, yo mom, yo كده. Is this how you call your dad and your mom? Where's love? Where is Ya abati? Where's Ya bunay, my beloved son? Even in Urdu they say oh beti, oh beta. Those of you who speak Urdu, Ya habibi, Ya ibni. The Arab, they have this mashallah in their cultures as well. Ya habibi, Ya nur'aini, whatever. Talk to the heart before the brain. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us practice and to convey. Barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khair. Do not forget this principle, the principle called use the language of compassion with your kids, with your loved ones. We'll meet you and see you next week inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.